Salve Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When the Magi had departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you. Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him." Joseph rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt. He stayed there until the death of Herod, that what the Lord had said through the prophet might be fulfilled. "Out of Egypt I call my son." When Herod realized that he had been deceived by the Magi, he became furious. He ordered the massacre of all the boys in Bethlehem and in its vicinity, 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had ascertained from the Magi. Then was fulfilled what had been said through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, sobbing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children, and she would not be consoled, since they were no more. The Gospel of the Lord. Something I read this morning said that given the population at the time, the Holy Innocents probably included somewhere around 20 children. And the commentary went on to say that a lot of times that figure is inflamed to make us think thousands, but that's probably not realistic. But that doesn't soften the blow of the magnitude of what happened here. And yet you see all the connections in Scripture. The mention of Rachel, Rachel dies while giving birth after she has been childless for years. She dies giving birth to Benjamin, who is the father of one of the tribes that ends up coming out of Egypt in liberation for the promised land. In a sense, the sacrifice of her own life helps to give birth to the Exodus in a way. And you see Matthew referring to this specifically, "Out of Egypt I called my son." And then you think of all the children that were sacrificed at the time of Moses for fear of the Israelite population dominating Egypt. All these things connected and interwoven, and yet from the sacrifice of the children in Exodus, from the sacrifice of the children in Bethlehem, there's an exodus into a type of promised land. Jesus comes forward, and Jesus becomes, it is his blood that cleanses all. And it's the blood of the martyrs that, in a sense, they receive what the church calls the baptism of blood. They shed their blood for the sake of Christ. And that is what saves them. Though baptism is the ordinary means of salvation, God isn't limited to that. These children are saved by the fact that they shed their blood in this baptism of blood. And so you see here Joseph now coming out of Egypt. And although sometimes you could look at this and say, it's awful that all these children had to be sacrificed because of Jesus, and yet Jesus also participates in this sacrifice with his very own life later on as we see him on the cross. And then the blood of martyrs continues to be spilled for the faith throughout the ages, even to our day today, where God continues to work in his glory. Now, what you see when you connect this with Rachel, with Moses, and you connect this to Jesus, Jesus has the exodus par excellence, where he liberates us all into the promised land of heaven. And so the sadness dissolves into the great joy of salvation. Even for these little innocent children, the sadness dissolves into a great joy as they share in the kingdom of heaven. It says something to all of us for today, that even the suffering for the faith that we do, even the little sacrifices that we make for the sake of fidelity, all this type of suffering and sacrifice becomes resolved in the joy of the resurrection. And so we press on in the love of Jesus Christ.
Regina Celi,